I'm going to speak to you like this is a real moment between us. Because in a way, it is. You ever notice how life feels like it's moving, but you're not really moving with it? Like you wake up, check your phone, scroll a little, think about what you should be doing, maybe feel a small pressure in your chest that you can't fully explain. And then the day just carries you: work, responsibilities, expectations, bills, people's opinions, your own self, doubt quietly sitting in the background like a second voice you didn't invite. And somewhere inside all of that noise, there's this question you don't always say out loud. Why does it feel like things aren't flowing for me? Because you've tried, you've planned, you've forced, you've overthought. You've replayed conversations in your head at 2 a.m. wondering if you said the wrong thing, missed the right opportunity, or somehow delayed your own success. And here's the truth: most people don't say clearly enough. It's not that life is against you. It's that you've been taught to push instead of align. You were told effort is everything, hustle is everything, control is everything. But nobody really explained what happens when effort turns into resistance, when control turns into anxiety, when hustle turns into exhaustion. And now you're standing in that space where you're still trying, but something inside feels off. Like you're rowing a boat but the river isn't cooperating anymore. What if I told you the river was never the problem? What if the real shift is learning how to float instead of fight? There is a different way of living that most people only stumble into after burnout, breakdown, or deep frustration. It's not about doing more. It's about becoming more aligned. And when alignment happens, things stop feeling like they're being chased. Opportunities don't feel forced anymore. They feel timed. People don't feel random anymore. They feel right. Money stops feeling like something you wrestle for and starts feeling like something you're naturally in relationship with. This isn't fantasy talk. This is energetic reality, because everything you experience externally is responding to something internally. Your thoughts, your emotional frequency, the quiet beliefs you repeat without even noticing. And here's where it gets interesting. The moment you stop trying to fix everything externally and start tuning your inner world, something almost eerie happens. Things begin to reorganize themselves around you. Not instantly, not magically overnight, but consistently, subtly, intelligently. You might meet the right person at the exact moment you stopped obsessing over finding them. You might get the opportunity after you stopped rehearsing how it should look. You might finally breathe financially when you stop identifying with lack. It's like reality responds better when you're not grabbing it too tightly. And I know that sounds simple. Maybe even too simple for how complicated life feels right now. But simplicity is often what we resist the most. Because we think struggle equals progress. We think anxiety equals effort. We think if it doesn't feel hard, it must not be working. But what if ease is actually the signal you've been waiting for? What if flow isn't something you earn, but something you allow? And if you've been feeling stuck, delayed, uncertain, or just mentally overloaded lately, this is exactly where your shift begins, because what you're about to step into is not a strategy. It's a state of being, and once you understand it, you won't look at your life the same way again. Now I want you to sit with this idea for a moment, because it changes everything. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not waiting for your turn. You are simply being recalibrated into alignment with something better than what your current stress can even imagine. And from here, we go deeper. You know what's interesting about fear? It rarely shows up as something obvious. It doesn't walk in and say, "Hey, I'm fear. I'm here to ruin your life." No, it shows up dressed like responsibility. It sounds like, "Be realistic." It sounds like, "Don't get your hopes up." It sounds like, "What if it doesn't work out?" And slowly, quietly, it starts making decisions for you. You don't apply for that opportunity because you assume you're not ready. You don't start that idea because you think someone else is already doing it better. You don't speak up in meetings. You don't launch the thing. You don't move. You don't risk. You don't expand. And then one day you look at your life and think, why does it feel like I'm watching myself live instead of actually living? That's fear in disguise. And the strange part is, most people in the US don't even realize how normalized this has become. It's like waking up, commuting, working, paying bills, scrolling through other people's highlight reels, and calling it a life, while your deeper self is sitting there quietly saying, "This isn't all you are. Let me make this real for you." There was a woman, let's call her Sarah, working a steady job in Chicago. Good salary, stable routine. Everything looked fine on paper. But every night she would sit in her car for a few extra minutes before going inside her apartment, just to breathe. Because inside, she felt like something in her life was paused. She had an idea she wanted to start, something creative, something that felt alive. But every time she got close to beginning, the same thought came in. What if I fail and lose everything I worked for? So she stayed safe, but safe started to feel heavy. And one day she realized something simple but brutal. She wasn't afraid of failing. She was afraid of finally seeing what she was capable of, and still not trusting it. That moment shifted everything for her. And here's what most people never understand. Fear doesn't disappear before action. It dissolves through action, not reckless action, but aligned action. Even the smallest step in the direction of truth starts weakening. Fear's control over your mind, and slowly you begin to notice something strange. The things you were afraid of start losing their emotional charge. They don't feel as loud anymore, because fear only has authority where there is no movement. Now, let's go deeper, because once fear starts loosening its grip, something else becomes visible, and that something is divine timing. And I know that phrase gets thrown around a lot, but most people misunderstand it completely. They think divine timing means wait and hope. But it's not passive, it's precise. It's intelligent sequencing. It's life placing you in the right emotional, mental, and environmental position so that when something arrives, you don't just receive it. You recognize it. Think about your own life for a second. How many times have you looked back and said, if that had happened earlier, I wouldn't have been ready for it? Maybe you wanted a relationship before you healed certain patterns. Maybe you wanted success before you had the discipline to hold it. Maybe you wanted money before you understood how to respect it. And if it had come early, it might have slipped through your hands without you even realizing why. That's timing, not delay. Design. There was a guy in Texas who wanted to start a business in his early 20s. He had the idea, the excitement, even the ambition. But nothing was stabilizing. Every attempt fell apart. He thought life was blocking him. Years later, after working different jobs, learning skills, building emotional resilience through failure, after failure, he revisited the same idea. But this time, something was different. He wasn't desperate. He wasn't scattered. He wasn't trying to prove anything. And that time, it worked. Same idea. Different timing, completely different outcome. That's not luck. That's alignment meeting preparation. And this is where something powerful clicks into place. When you stop fighting the timing of your life, you start seeing the intelligence behind it. And instead of saying, why is this not happening? You start asking, what is this moment preparing me for? That shift alone changes your entire nervous system. Because now you're not resisting life. You're participating in it. And in that participation, fear loses its authority. Not because you destroyed it, but because you outgrew it. Now, once fear starts loosening its grip, and you begin to see that life isn't actually against you, something very subtle starts to happen. Your attention changes. And when your attention changes, your entire reality starts reorganizing itself. Because what most people don't realize is this: your life is constantly listening to your internal dialogue, not just the words you say out loud, but the quiet sentences you repeat in your mind when no one is watching. I never get good opportunities. People like me don't really win big. Money comes in and goes out too fast. These thoughts don't feel powerful in the moment, but over time they become instructions, and life responds like a system that follows instructions very precisely. Let me explain this in a way that really lands. Imagine a woman in New York City. She works in retail, long hours, standing all day, barely enough time to breathe between shifts. She tells herself constantly, "This is just how life is for me. I'll always have to work this hard just to stay afloat." And she doesn't even realize it. But that sentence becomes her emotional baseline. So even when good things come near her, opportunities, connections, ideas, she doesn't fully receive them, not because they aren't there, but because her internal filter doesn't believe they belong to her. Now, here's where everything begins to shift. One day, she starts paying attention to her words, not forcing positivity, not pretending life is perfect, but simply noticing what she's been saying to herself. And she makes one small adjustment. Instead of saying, "I always struggle," she starts saying, "I am learning how to move differently." That's it. No dramatic transformation yet. No sudden jackpot moment. But something in her energy changes. And when energy changes, perception changes. She starts noticing job postings she used to scroll past. She starts having conversations she normally would have avoided. She starts seeing possibilities where she used to only see limitation. Nothing outside changed first. She changed first. And that's the part most people miss. You don't speak reality after it happens. You speak it before it arrives. Your words are not commentary on your life. They are architecture for your future. And when you begin to treat them that way, something powerful begins to happen. Your inner world starts shaping your outer world with more precision. Now, let's go even deeper into this. Because once your internal language begins to shift, you naturally step into something else, abundance consciousness. And this is not about money alone. This is about perception. It's about how your mind interprets what is available to you in any given moment. Two people can stand in the exact same city, same economy, same environment, and experience completely different realities. One sees limitation everywhere. The other sees entry points everywhere. Same world, different frequency of interpretation. Think about someone in Los Angeles trying to build a creative career. One person says, "The industry is saturated. It's impossible to break in. Everyone already has connections." And another person in the same city says, "There are more platforms than ever. More ways to be seen. More opportunities to create value without permission." Same environment, different mental frequency. And here's the real truth. Nobody really says clearly enough. Abundance is not what you have, it's what you notice. And when you shift into that awareness, life starts responding in a completely different way. You start receiving messages at the right time, meeting people at the right intersection, discovering ideas that feel like they came out of nowhere. But they didn't. They were always there. You just weren't aligned enough to perceive them before. There was a man in California who worked a regular 9 to -5 in logistics. Nothing glamorous, nothing flashy. But he had this quiet habit. He would always say to himself, "Opportunities recognize me." At first it felt silly to him, almost like pretending, but he kept repeating it anyway. Not because he fully believed it, but because he wanted to test what would happen if he stopped reinforcing limitation. Months passed, nothing dramatic at first. Then one day, during a completely ordinary conversation with a coworker, someone mentioned a side project that needed help. Something outside his normal job scope, something he had never done before, and instead of dismissing it like he normally would, he leaned in. That one conversation turned into a new income stream. Then another connection formed from that. Then another opportunity followed. Not because life suddenly became generous, but because he became receptive. And that is the real shift. You don't force abundance. You become someone who no longer blocks it. And when that happens, everything starts to feel less like chasing and more like aligning. Like doors opening at the exact moment you arrive. Not too early, not too late, just right. And in that space, life stops feeling like a struggle against reality and starts feeling like participation in something intelligently unfolding. Now, we're entering the real turning point, where everything stops being theory and starts becoming identity. Because once you've seen how words shape your inner world, and how perception filters what you even notice in life, the next question becomes almost unavoidable. Who are you becoming while all of this is happening? Because energy attraction, it's not something you do once in a while, it's something you are all the time, whether you realize it or not. Every room you walk into, every conversation you have, every job interview, every text message, every quiet moment where you're just thinking about your life, you are broadcasting something. Not metaphorically, energetically, and people don't just respond to what you say, they respond to what you are signaling beneath the words. That's why sometimes you meet someone and instantly feel comfortable, like there's no pressure, no tension. And other times everything feels slightly off, even if nothing wrong is happening. It's frequency recognition. Let me bring this down into something very real. Imagine a man in Atlanta, working in customer support. He's not unhappy, but he feels invisible. Like he's always blending into the background of his own life. He applies for better roles, but somehow never gets called back. He tries networking events, but conversations never really turn into anything. And, slowly, without realizing it, he starts carrying this quiet belief. People don't really notice me. Now, here's the subtle part. That belief doesn't just stay in his mind. It starts shaping how he shows up. He speaks a little less confidently. He hesitates before sharing ideas. He downplays his achievements in conversations. And the world simply mirrors that back, not because life is punishing him, but because he's broadcasting, "Don't fully see me." Then one day something shifts. He doesn't suddenly become a different person, but he starts noticing the way he enters rooms. He straightens his posture a little more. He speaks with slightly more presence. He stops apologizing for existing in conversations. It feels small, almost too small to matter. But energetically, it's a different signal. And within a few weeks, something interesting happens. Someone at a networking event actually remembers him. Not because he tried harder, but because he showed up differently. That's attraction in motion. Not chasing, not forcing, but aligning. And once you understand this, you stop asking, "How do I get opportunities?" And you start asking, "What am I currently signaling that either invites or repels them?" Now let's go deeper into the final shift, because this is where everything locks into place. When you truly begin living in this awareness, when fear loses its grip, when timing is trusted, when words are aligned, when abundance is noticed, and when your energy is intentional, you stop trying to become someone else. You start returning to who you actually are beneath all the noise. And this is the identity shift, the moment where life stops feeling like a constant uphill climb and starts feeling like movement with direction. There was a woman in Seattle who had been stuck in cycles of overthinking for years. She would plan everything, analyze everything, try to predict every outcome before making a move. And yet she always felt one step behind her own life. One day, after a conversation with a friend, she decided to instead of over-controlling every decision, she would pause and ask herself one question before acting. Does this feel aligned or forced? At first, she ignored the answer. Then she started listening to it, and slowly her decisions changed. She stopped saying yes to things out of pressure. She stopped forcing conversations that felt draining. She started choosing based on inner clarity instead of external expectation. And within months, her life didn't just improve externally. It softened internally, less tension, less mental noise, more space. That's what happens when identity shifts from control to flow. Now, here's the truth that ties everything together. Living in flow doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what is aligned, without resistance, without internal war. It means trusting that you are not late, not behind, not missing anything, but actively participating in a timing system that is more intelligent than anxiety can ever understand. And when you live like this, you don't just attract better opportunities. You become the version of you that doesn't block them anymore. And that changes everything,